Hello and welcome to the Queer History Fireside Chat at the Utah Pride Center. My name's Jackson. I'm going to be your host tonight. This is maybe one of my favorite series or events that we do here at the center. Once a month, we ask the people who are deeply involved with activism, with queer culture, with queer life, the people who owned bars, the people who lived through the HIV epidemic, all of these people who shaped the culture and the community that we know today. We want to get to know their stories. We want to get them connected to the younger generations. I say it all the time, our history isn't taught in schools. So it's critical that we collect it and share it and pass it around. And these history fireside chats are one of the ways that we're able to do that, along with many other things, including our library. If you haven't been to the center yet, come down and say hi. Tonight we have a very, very special guest, somebody that at this point, everybody has to have run into him if you are active in the LGBTQ scene in Utah. He is a legend. I am so excited to hear all about his stories with the Gay Rodeo Association, the early days of the Utah Pride, Gay Days, all sorts of really cool stuff that he's been involved with since the 80s, 90s. Everybody, please welcome Kevin Hillman.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Kevin. This
You're
is so
welcome.
awesome.
Most of those people know me. So.
Most everybody out there knows him. Raise your hand if you know Kevin. Oh my God, everybody knows Kevin. And for those of you that don't, you're going to know him very well tonight because he did warn me ahead of time that he doesn't have much of a filter, and we're going to hear a lot of stuff. Jay knows to cut to the welcome screen, the technical difficulty screen, if he has an inappropriate joke or something, because that's just very classic Kevin. But Kevin, you've been involved in the Salt Lake City gay scene for how many years? Like, when did you first start getting involved in Salt Lake?
Well, I lived in Logan for a while, and right after I got excommunicated, I came down to a gay bar.
We're going to get back into that, don't worry.
I came down to a gay bar, and Bob Coyle is somebody who was a bartender back then at the Sun, and Nikki was bartending that night. And Bob took me in. I didn't know they were private clubs. I didn't know anything about them. So that was in 1982. And so that was my first time in a gay bar in Salt Lake City.
Now, and you came all the way down from Logan to go to the gay bars in Salt Lake?
Oh, almost every weekend after that.
Hey, all right, rock and roll. That's the sort of bar scene that, like, I think that the younger generation really takes for granted. There are so many queer bars around. Like, you can't throw a rock in this town without hitting a bar somewhere that has a rainbow flag in it. But that was probably not really the case outside of Salt Lake, maybe back in the 80s.
No. What was interesting, though, back then, and a lot of you know that are here know that, we had about 11 or 12 gay bars and lesbian bars. For a city our size.
In the 80s in Salt Lake?
Just in Salt Lake. For a city our size, that was a lot of bars, because when I was working for a medical software company, and I was down in Brownsville, Texas, and down in that area, which down there it's about double, 3 times the size of Salt Lake City, and they had 2 gay bars. So
they need to catch up. That is something that's always been really interesting. Something that has stuck with me that you told me a long, long time ago was that there will never be a mayor elected in Salt Lake City who doesn't have the gay vote. Like, what did you mean by that?
Well, at one time that was true. I mean, we're a large enough voting bloc that if we vote with our power, we can pretty much swing an election in Salt Lake. Now, I don't know if we're as united as we was back in the early 90s and that, and if it can happen that way. But I mean, even the straight mayors back in those days, they courted the gay community. And
Rocky just kept making that parade route longer and longer every year.
Well, even, oh golly, what's his name? His daughter's on the county, Wilson. I remember when I first got here, I was talking to him because I'd been involved in politics in Idaho, and something was asked if I'd be interested in helping out with his campaign.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was too scared and too closeted to even do it.
Totally.
But like I said, the first gay bar I ever went to, though, ever and went into was I was in San Francisco on my mission, and I had to go to the bathroom. So we saw this bar, and I jumped out of the car and went in there, and it's still there now. It was called Bottoms Up. And
I'm familiar with Bottoms Up. Yes.
I didn't know what it was. I just had to go to the bathroom. And so
That's so great.
I had a drag queen talking to me. I didn't know that I was being hit on. I was a pretty naive boy when I went on my mission.
Yeah.
Come to that.
I want to talk a little bit more about that. So you're not from Salt Lake. You're from Idaho?
Idaho.
Where Idaho?
I grew up in a town or near a town called Driggs. I grew up in Darby.
Oh, so like the Yellowstone, or no, Jackson Hole area.
Yeah, well, I'm on the Idaho side of the Grand Tetons, and Jackson's on the Wyoming
Got
side.
it. Okay,
So
cool.
from my grandparents' house, you can see the Tetons through their
Beautiful.
living room window. It's framed.
That's so beautiful.
So
What was life like for a young Kevin Hillman, like the 60s, growing up in a rural town? Because I think I'm also from a pretty rural town, and I think people have a pretty bleak outlook on what life must be like for LGBTQ people growing up in the rural areas, but that's not always the case.
no, as I tell people, we talk about being able to pass as straight, and in my graduating class in my school, no one ever even said it. I asked some of the kids once, "Did you think I was gay?" And they said no. And we had 4 gay kids in my graduating class, so I was down the totem pole a little ways. And we only had 49
Were they out
students.
at the time?
No, nobody.
No, I was going to say.
Matter of fact, the other 3 have never come out before they died, so openly came out.
That's really sad.
But it was just I was active in FFA and rodeo and the community. I was not active in the Mormon church after I turned 14. But you know, me and
so
my
were you
brothers.
raised LDS?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I
And
was
then
raised
fell
LDS.
out of it at 14.
What happened was they took the county, the farming ward, and put it in with the city ward. And those boys of us who had to come home and milk cows and do things like that, they were going to go out to Green Canyon Hot Springs, which is just close by swimming pool, and they were leaving at 5, 6 o'clock at the latest. Well, I milked cows at 5:30, and so, you know, I just got disinterested in going. And there was like 8 of us that was in that age group, and I think I'm the only one that stayed anywhere near the church. But see, my mother was raised Methodist.
Got it.
My father was raised in a Mormon household, but he smoked, and so my mom said she wouldn't marry him after she joined the church.
That's the most small town Utah story I've ever heard.
So, anyway, so he quit smoking, they got buried, and then our family was kind of the melting pot of the misfits. So any of the kids, they were just comfortable because my mom was pretty non-judgmental. And
so a fairly progressive household for
well, my dad
60s,
chewed
70s.
tobacco and drank whiskey when he was in the bishopric.
Good for him.
So,
I feel like you need to do that if you're going to be in the bishopric. It might take the edge off a little bit.
yeah, that was his thing.
Yeah.
I mean, my mother used to spike his chewing tobacco with Tabasco sauce and stuff. So it got so hot one day. I heard her, and I went upstairs and looked out at the barn, and my dad's out at the chicken coop with a hose washing his mouth out. And went to the doctor the next week because he thought he had cancer or something. And his friends finally said, he said to him, "Claire, you don't know your wife has been putting cayenne pepper and stuff in your chewing tobacco. How stupid are you?"
He just thought he was burning a hole through his lip.
So he quit chewing for about a year.
That's great.
So, and then, you know, most of my relatives were LDS, but my mother's side of the family was Methodist. So when we had family get-togethers, we'd have a table spread, and on this end was the Mormons and the kids, and on this end was the Methodists, adults. And if you were really good and you wanted to wander on down to the adult side of the Methodist table, Aunt Minnie would give you some of her punch. So
Heyo, Aunt Minnie.
I knew what a wine cooler was when I was about 4 years old. So.
Everyone needs an Aunt Minnie. Yeah, that's beautiful.
So she was they were colorful people, most of my family.
That's so wonderful. I feel like that is that was a similar experience that I had. I had both my parents were raised LDS, but very progressive themselves, and they weren't really a part of the church. So I never felt like a lot of pressure to assimilate into that culture or go on a mission or anything. But it sounds like you did eventually go on a mission. So how did that happen?
I didn't have anything else to do.
That's fair.
I mean, literally, all my friends, they were on missions. All my roommates from college were on missions. I was at home trying to decide if I could go to college because my folks at that time couldn't afford it. It was back in the time when farmers were slaughtering cattle along the side of the road and dumping loads of potatoes out in the gutters because there was just no money for them. And so my family didn't have anything other to, as the oldest. And of course, we were so wealthy, I couldn't get Pell Grants or any of those grants because we were land rich.
Yep.
And so farm kids were hurt that way and being able to do that kind of stuff. So, that's kind of how I grew up. But I threw myself into the animals and 4-H and I love to dance. So I was an avid dancer, and
incredible.
I'd go to every dance we had, and I was limber. I could do the splits. I could do the Chinese splits. I could do the jump Chinese splits, and I could bend over backwards and pick up a Kleenex off the floor without using my hands.
You would have been an incredible drag queen. That's so amazing.
Any of you know who Olga Korbut was? She was a gymnast back in the 70s from Russia. That Kleenex thing I saw her do it something, and I thought, I'm gonna do that.
That's happening.
So I did it twice, but my nose got smashed so many times from trying to do it. I quit trying to do it.
That's fair.
And then when we were at college, and me and a gal was going dancing and all the time, and they finally asked us not to enter in the dance competitions anymore because they didn't like not letting us win. So, because we won 3 weeks in a row, so they decided that we would be judges after that. So
that's nice.
Yeah, that only lasts like 1 week, and we got bored.
So you end up going on your mission. You get called to Sacramento.
I got called to the Oakland, California mission.
Yeah.
Which included both sides of the bay, from the top of the bay down as far south as Gilroy and stuff down.
What was your mission like? I mean, obviously you found your way into a gay bar at some point, which I think a lot of missionaries try to, but
the only thing I did, I got mad at my companion near the end of my mission. We were doing something, and so I left, and I drove by a Peek Boo Boo store and bookstore, and so I went in and thought, well, I can put a quarter in, and they just had a curtain there, and the guy that was standing there, and to this day I know they were playing pool, and it was the infamous guy that was in gay porn back in the 70s. Do you guys remember his name?
Pop quiz.
Who?
Is anyone taking notes just to keep these names down for our records?
I can't remember his name. If I could remember it, I'm pretty sure if you're near my generation, you'd know who he is. But
he was just playing pool at the quarter shop, huh?
This guy kept pulling the curtain back, so I just got up and I'm in a white shirt and dress slacks.
Keep the name tag on?
No.
No.
That was in my pocket.
Just burning a hole in that pocket.
So I did buy a posing magazine and went out, and I was looking at it, and then I felt so guilty. I found a trash can and threw it in it.
Is that like a physique magazine, like a bodybuilder magazine?
Well, no, but that's what they called it.
Got it. Okay.
It was just naked men. Period.
Got it.
So, and I never felt guilty.
No?
So, no.
Interesting. At any point during that.
Well, before I went on my mission, I went and told them all the things I was doing, and they said, well, let's talk about it. And we talked about it, and then they decided, I was headed to the mission home, and they said, that's fine, you can go. When was the last time you did it? And I'm like, last night. 6 months ago.
Last night.
So anyway, but I didn't know what gay was.
No.
I mean, to me, it was my cousins and nothing, the hayloft. We'd have little parties, you might say. Then you went on your mission, you came home, you got married, and you had a family. I just didn't follow that same path.
Was that the plan, though? While you were on your mission, you were going to come home, get married?
Oh, I got engaged. I was within 2 weeks of getting married.
2 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
Like, caterer picked out, we're going to do it at the fellowship hall?
Wedding dress was not made yet, and the bridesmaid dresses weren't made yet.
Okay.
I went to Jackson and went drinking, which I wasn't supposed to do. And I think I had a couple of beers or something. I didn't drink much. But all my friends left me there. And so one of this guys, the bartenders, he asked if I needed a place to stay. And I said, yeah, because I can't get back over we call it over the hill until tomorrow.
The Tetons just over the hill.
Over the hill.
Yeah.
When you go
The
to
Grand
Jackson, you're going
Tetons.
over the hill.
Just a little hill.
If you're going to Rexburg, Idaho Falls, Pocatello, you're going out below.
Got it. Out and below.
I mean, those are terms that if you grew up there and somebody says, oh, my folks are out below, that just meant they weren't going to be home all day.
Got it.
So that was kind of it. But he took me back to his place, and we were sitting on the couch and talking and everything. And then more happened in that 20 minutes than happened the whole time I was making out with my fiance on the bed at my house. So I thought, okay, I got to figure something out. So I drove about 30 hours to Oregon and got a hotel room and went and said, and told her. And she handed me the ring back, and we went back to college, and my cousin started dating her.
Oh, good. They end up together? No? Okay.
No, they dated for a while.
That's great.
So
she was back on the market quick.
Oh, yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah, she's a fun girl.
I like
she
that.
was quite pretty.
What an icon.
And my cousin and I are a lot alike in a lot of ways. David Breckenridge, Ryan. So he knows my cousin. Oh. And anyway, so they dated for quite a while. But then I was living in Rexburg, Idaho at that time, and then I moved to Logan, Utah. And not on purpose. I was headed to California to work.
No one goes to Logan on purpose, for the record.
I don't know. I liked Logan.
They have the best Pride Festival. I love Logan Pride.
I got to meet Courtney in Logan.
Oh, okay, cool.
That big green whatever it was.
Big green Chevy.
Yeah. Anyway, so I was headed to California to work in a bank, because the bank I worked in was one of the first banks that had the ability to deposit money at one branch and you could see it at the next branch. And so this bank in California offered me a job because I'd done all the training up in Idaho. And I got as far as Logan and got a phone call, and they said, our board of directors nixed it. And one of my friends was working at a bank in Logan, and it's now called Cache Valley Bank, but it was North Park Bank of Commerce. And she said, we need a head teller, and we need a SBA loan servicer and real estate loan, Utah Housing. So I took over the head teller job and was there for about a year, and then we can go on from there.
All right, cool. And then, so at this point you're living in Logan. Is this when you're coming down to the gay bar like every weekend?
Oh, no.
No.
No, when I first moved to Logan, I only went to Lady Bird.
Okay, cool. Yeah, what's Lady Bird? I don't know what that means.
The rest stop on the edge of town.
Oh, hello, lady. Hi, lady. Well, you do what you got to do sometimes out there. It wasn't always easy. I think these kids take these apps very much for granted, because Grindr just happened to be the rest stop closest to your house sometimes. And I think we should be thankful that we have a device that we can chat with each other on and meet each other and exchange things before, just showing up to an overpass and hoping for the best.
Yeah. I just thought it was funny. It was named after President's wife.
Lady Bird. So, that's beautiful.
Anyway, so that's Logan. And then when I got excommunicated,
I'd
been in Logan just about a year.
How'd you get excommunicated? I feel like you told me one time you told them to excommunicate you. You were trying to get excommunicated.
I defined in very graphic detail what I was doing, and told the bishop that.
Iconic.
I was in a singles working ward, adult, and so everybody, he had heard everything, and so
Sure.
when I told him what was going on, because he was trying to get me to get a temple recommend, and I knew I couldn't. So he says, let's take this in the office, and he says, well, what do you want to do? And I says, I just want to move forward and get excommunicated. I've got some conflicts in my life with the church and how I believe in that, and then my other stuff, and so I just decided I wanted to do that. And the night I got excommunicated, I went and saw the movie with Harry Hamill in it, Making Love. And I kind of had a nervous breakdown that night.
Okay.
And called the bishop up, and he stayed with me for a few hours, and then after that, I was fine. That was the worst I've ever, other than when I tried to commit suicide and run head on into a semi.
Well, that would do it.
That's right after I broke off my engagement.
Oh, okay. With the same gal that we were talking about earlier? Okay.
Oh, I only had one.
Excuse me for assuming.
Well, I had lots of girlfriends, but I only had one fiance.
So they officially excommunicate you. Is that like a big weight off your chest? Were you kind of like,
yeah, it was.
Did you feel like I finally am out from under something that I was feeling a lot of pressure from?
Yeah, it really was. I went to my court of love, and I walk in.
Can you
and
explain what a court of love is?
I walk in and I'm like, I've done you and I've done you. I've had sex with you. So there's some younger members in there that were a little squirmy in their seats. So I thought that was kind of funny. But I dressed in as much pink as I owned when I went for my church court.
That's so incredible.
Just kind of rub it in their face.
Yeah.
So, but that was an interesting experience. I wasn't going to lie to them, but they asked me what I'd done, and I said, well, I've done everything from kissing to S&M. It just went really quiet. And
That's on his business card, actually.
I looked at the audience, or my audience at that time, and I said, stand and model. So,
amazing.
That was my thing there. And then they really started pushing for wanting details. And I got angry and just said, listen, that's not what's going on here.
Sure.
I said, you know that I'm admitting to adultery and all that, premarital sex and all that. And I said, if you want details and you want to be a voyeur, part of my life, I'll come and talk to you personally. But I'm not going to be in here for you. I'll be voyeurs.
Yeah.
And I actually got angry about that.
Yeah.
And the guy that was on the stake presidency, wasn't the stake president, he started coming back at me. And I stood up and just looked at him again, and I says, you know, this is the end of our conversation. Don't ask me any more stuff. Mm-hmm. And then the stake president stepped in, and so we had a nice little chat after that. And then I left, and they made their decision and told me I was excommunicated. So then I thought, oh, let's go see Making Love. So that's what I did.
That's fabulous.
But it was funny. They asked me, of course, they ask you to share the names of those who you've been with and everything. And my answer was, I'm doing this for me. And if they want to do it for them, that's fine. Yeah. But I'm not going to.
That would be brother Nunya, elder, none of your business. Yeah, just stay out of it.
I never said it was none of their business. I just told them, you know, those, and I said it this way, those of those who know, you know, I've been with them and everything, they can do this on their own. I'm not going to put them in a position. And I think that was a great relief for the three men that were in there. So.
That's excellent. So, and what year is that all goes down?
82.
82. All right.
So I still have all my letters.
I love it. I want to fast forward a little bit to get to your involvement, because by the time you do come down to Salt Lake, you're active. You're like the chair of everything and involved with all sorts of different organizations. So I want to
10 years later.
Yeah. At this point, you've really gotten involved in the community. And more specifically, I kind of want to talk about Pride Day of 1991.
Okay.
Because Pride Day of 1991, we talk a lot about the history of the Utah Pride Festival and kind of the way that it was born. And you can find pride festivals in one form or another dating back to the 70s and probably even earlier than that with the beer keggers and the meetups on the nude beach. At one point or another, there has been a pride festival of some kind. But pride as it exists in its form today, kind of the first one of those was Pride Day of 1991, because that was the
Oh,
first
no.
year. No?
There was an organized group of people that were.
Well, I meant because that was the first year that you brought in outside talent, and it started to take more form of like
Yeah, we
a
got in trouble
concert.
for that.
Yeah, that's all I meant.
We got in a lot of trouble.
That's what I wanted to get into. Was what was the controversy around bringing in an outside entertainer? Because at this point, you had none of the Pride Day organizers had brought in outside entertainers.
No,
so
at that point, I'm pretty sure at that point, all they'd ever used was our own community.
okay,
And my co-chair was a New York Jewish girl.
okay,
And she had known of this entertainer back in New York. And so we decided that we'd bring her in as the headliner. And we approved it with the community council and everything. We had a $2,000 budget, and we had $600 of it we had to pay for what would you call it? Where they had food at the park. What's one of those things called? A what?
like a health department permit.
It's a cover with tables and.
Like the.
I can't think of the word.
Oh, a gazebo or a pergola or something.
Yeah. What's
Pavilion.
that? A
is the word
pavilion.
I was
Yeah.
thinking. Yeah.
And somebody
Thank
had
you, Andy.
they'd had a semi truck in there, and somebody had pulled away and damaged it. And so, $2,000 that we had, 600 of it right off the bat had to go to that. So. Wow. And then we talked about the fact that it was going to cost us about $2,000 to bring this entertainer in, which was paying for her airfare, her room, and then her fee. Yeah. And so altogether, it was just about $2,000. And so we went and got approved at the community council. Everybody seemed to be okay with it. And then we had a Pride Day meeting in March, and we had signed contracts with different people and everything, and people got upset with us and wanted to know why we were doing that and spending that kind of money. And
sounds
like,
a little familiar. If anyone was part of 2023.
At that point, we had, between me and Deb and Angela Nutt, Dave Tomette, Sorensen, there's about 8 or 9 of us on this committee, and Dave was the one that got most upset about it. I don't know why, but at that point we'd already raised almost $10,000.
Oh wow!
So we had it paid for, and then we did a Pride guide that nobody had ever done before, and we raised almost $20,000 with that.
And 1981, this is the first year that you're the chair.
Yeah, that was the first year that I had.
And were you on the council before that?
Well, the community council was just a group of organizations and individuals that met. And like an idiot, I thought, well, it'd be fun to organize Pride Day. I had to.
I do that every year. I'm like, oh, it's going to be so fun to organize Pride. And then by about this point of the year, I'm like, oh, God, it'll be over.
But anyway, I'd organized FFA state conventions and 4-H state conventions. So I was used to helping organize those kinds of things.
Sure.
And putting them together. So I thought this would be fun. Brenda Vossard was supposed to be my co-chair, and she got a scholarship to go to Berkeley and study. And so she stepped down, and Deb stepped in, and so that's who we worked with. But we had an art show that year that Angela and Dave. It was great because people would come in and say, we want to do this, and so we just let them do it. So Angela and Dave would put that together. Somebody put together the volleyball tournament. Everybody stepped in and helped and did everything. And then when the gal was up on the stage performing, by the way, I got my drag name because of her.
Oh, what's your drag name?
She sings a song about a postman, or a song about my little neighborhood. And she said, I asked the postman what I should call him, and he said, just call me Blanche. And so they thought it was funny, and Wildebeest and Chris Trujillo took that and they said, well, oh no, Wildebeest and he lives in Pittsburgh. Jeff Friedman. We were the three. We called ourselves the Ugly Girls. Other ugly girls really exist. And they took that, and so they wanted to have last names for us. And Frank says, well, more people bounce off your butt than anybody I know, so we'll just call you Blanche Trampoline. So
Blanche
that's how my drag name came
Trampoline. That's the most beautiful drag name I've ever heard. That's so good. If somebody doesn't steal it and go on RuPaul with that name, I'm going to be pretty upset. That's really solid.
So we had Wildebeest, and we had Utah, Montana, and Blanche Trampoline. So our goal was to humiliate performers by going up and tipping them with panties and stuff like that.
Classic queer stuff.
For years, every time we started to walk towards Chris Trujillo, he'd just go to the back of the stage as far as he could.
I'm not those three, not the ugly girls.
Yeah.
Gotta say, way.
But anyway, that's off the subject. And those Pride days were fun. I was watching, I came across a bunch of pictures. That's where I saw it. Those pictures Kim Russo took, and she'd given me them. So I had a whole bunch of them. And that's where I saw your picture, Roy. And anyway, so it was fun to watch that. And then somebody posted some videos from those Pride days and stuff. But when she was on stage performing, the skinheads showed up en masse, all 10 of them. I think there was one with her husband and her and their baby. And Chuck White thought they didn't realize they were part of the group, and he was over there kind of hitting on the husband. So it was
good for him.
It was so funny. And then a backstory to that, Deb and her partner at that time wanted to have a baby, and they'd asked me if I'd father it. And so I went in and got tested and everything. And I forgot I went and got a blood test, and I got a phone call on Wednesday, and they said, do you want to come get your results? And I'm like, oh, okay. So I went in, and there was this gal.
This is Wednesday. Pride Day is Sunday.
Right.
Okay.
So I went in, and I can't remember her name. I know her name, but I can't think of it. She took me in. When I'd gotten results before, they take you from the waiting room, and they took you kind of a room off of the waiting room. And she took me down the hallway and out the hallway and through another office and into this back room. And I'm like, oh, okay, we're on the Mormon Trail to Utah. I know I'm positive. I mean, because that's the only reason she would do that. So she sat down, and I said, so I'm positive. What else do you want to tell me? She's like, what? And I'm like, I know I'm positive. I can because of the trek we just took. Mm-hmm. So that's on Wednesday before the Pride celebration. And I knew enough about HIV that I knew I'd seroconverted in November of the year before, and this was June. So I knew enough about it, and I just said to her, well, I do not have time to deal with this right now. I'm throwing a party.
That is such a week of Pride thought when you're organizing it. Just like, I don't have time for that. Like, I could lose a leg and just be like, well, I'll find her later. Like, there's stuff to do.
So I had 4 days that I didn't tell anybody. Yeah. And we got to Pride Day, and I just realized if something hits me, I'm going to be in trouble. And Michael and Aaron and I were good friends, and I pulled him aside, and I told him, and I said, if I lose it, I need someone to step in. Mm-hmm. And about the time we went to get the recipients for the Dr. Christian Reese Award out of the audience, this entertainer started singing a song about Magic Johnson, and I started to lose it. And I was trying to get Nikki up off her rear end to get her to come with me, and I don't think we told them back then who the recipients were. Yeah. Were you one that year, Ben? So anyway, so I'm in the middle of everybody, and I am just like freaking out, and all of a sudden I hear the skinheads are here, and I was able to just turn it around and go back to work and do what I did. And Michael was my puppy. I mean, he almost held onto my belt that whole
Oh,
day.
this is Michael Aaron. For anybody who's unfamiliar, Michael Aaron is the owner and operator of Q Salt Lake and the Q pages. Been involved forever. One Man Machine runs that whole magazine and has for years, and oftentimes at his own expense. So please just shout out, give some love to Michael Aaron next time you see him, because he's done so much for our community, and I'd love to get him in at some point
See,
for a
iconic
fireside.
works for him. I don't feel it works.
Iconic works for you. What are you
No,
talking about?
I don't think it does. But anyway, so we get over there, and the detective shows up, and my security that year literally was just one woman, and now he and I keep in contact, and but at that time he hadn't started to transition.
Got it.
And so we're both standing there, and the detective said, "Do you want them to go?" I said, "They're welcome to stay," because when I went on television, I said anybody can come down, and
Sure.
I said they're welcome to stay as long as they don't disrupt. And so then they started to chant, and I said, "Okay, they have to go."
No,
And
they
the
have to go.
detective literally took his finger and on the breastbone of the guy's like, "You need to leave now." I mean, I could see the red mark on the guy's chest. And about that time, about 15 Murray police officers showed up. And one of them was the dad of a kid that was there, tall, blonde hair, thin. And anybody at that time would know who he was. But they were really good about getting him out of there. And so me and my helper went over to talk to the detective, and these two motorcycle cops pulled up. And we said hello, and he said, "Oh," they said hello, and he said, "So are the faggots happy now?"
Oh.
That's what the motorcycle cop said. Oh yeah, yeah. They stood up, and she started singing a song, the gal, and everybody stood up and just turned their backs on them. So my biggest fear was there's no alcohol, but there's a group of about 10 men that were all over 6 foot standing there, and I was like, "Please do not
Don't cause any problems.
Don't go out," because they were ready to. Cause the owner of Blue, the bar Blue, Mike, he was one of them, and one of his friends, and I can't remember who else was there. But anyway, so they left, and I just looked at the detective, and he said, "You guys go back to the station and wait for me." And we got a letter of apology. I don't know how sincere it was, but. And one of the other things with that celebration, we had to tell the police that we were in their jurisdiction. I went into the chief of police and was telling him our security and what we were going to do and everything. And he kept asking questions. And all of a sudden I realized he's just asking the same thing over and over. And I just sat back in the chair and took a deep breath. And I looked at him and I said, "It's our constitutional right to gather, and it's your responsibility to protect that. What more do you want from me?"
Yeah.
And he just sat there and
It
he got
really
up.
is that simple.
He got up and went and got the sergeant that was going to work with us that weekend. So, but I wasn't mad. I was just like, this is, to be honest, that really was the first time I had felt any type of discrimination towards the community. Before that, I hadn't really, I knew it was there, but I hadn't really felt it. Other than when the guy pulled a gun on me and wanted me to give him a blowjob, but that's another story.
Yeah, I think that is something that we are fairly lucky for, as red of a state and as red as the vote tends to be in Utah. Salt Lake, very specifically, it feels a lot safer than you might expect a red state to feel. And so it like I have no problem holding a man's hand in downtown Salt Lake City, even as I walk right past the temple. It's not even something I think twice about. It's no big deal. And I think that spread is kind of reached all over the Wasatch Front. Even in just like the 20 years since I've come out, things have feel so different. What are like the starkest differences from when you first got involved in the community to today?
The lack of young people wanting to help their community.
Yeah.
Back then, young people were fighting to get us rights, and nowadays they go out, and if it's a flashy, starry event, they're there to support it and everything. back in those days, we all supported each other. We had to have each other's backs and organizations.
Yeah.
And now I just feel like a lot of them, and I don't think it's really all their fault either, because I think a lot of it has to be that they haven't had the opportunity to understand and be talked to about it and see how their help could make things different. They all know they can and it will, but they just don't have the urgency. They don't have the people waiting outside the bar to see when you.
Well, I think it's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a little bit our fault, the activists who have come before this generation, because this is what we wanted. We wanted things institutionally to feel so safe and so welcoming that those kids didn't have to go through the types of things that we went through growing up. But on the flip side, I also feel like there is sort of this generational, they take it for granted, these institutional privileges and rights that we have that didn't exist even 10 years ago. I know it's hard to imagine, but we didn't have job, housing, and marriage rights 10 years ago. Maybe just barely marriage rights in some places. But we've built these institutions that are so safe and so protected that now I think politically we're watching them start to sway a little bit in the wind and start to come down around us. And the difference is, back in the day, we had fierce people organizing, constantly ready to go, who were involved and engaged with each other. And we didn't rely on the institutions because we knew the institutions didn't have our backs. And I think that's something that is something that the community needs to get better at, is making sure that we do have opportunities and chances for everyone to get involved and acquainted and know each other. Because if those institutions do start to fail us, we need each other more than ever.
Well, and back in the 90s, we were fighting an epidemic, and we had something to fight for, and we had our friends. And when I got diagnosed, I told someone I'm never going back in the closet again. So I never tried to hide my HIV status. But if it hadn't been for the lesbians in the community taking care of us gay men, I mean, it was, I watched that at the center, at the foundation, and saw all that. And for me, I was healthy, and they were doing panels, and I knew I could go out and speak to people. And because I have a big mouth, I'm more than willing. And so I went into schools and different groups, and I actually did 2 working relief society groups at night. They were a hoot. They were a lot of fun. But so I was off during the week. I had a day off, and so I had the opportunity I got diagnosed this March, and I did my first panel in September. And by January 1st, there was 2 people alive from that panel, other than the person who put us together, and that was Barb Barnhart and myself. The other 7 people on that panel had died between September and January. So,
that's how rapidly it was happening back in those days.
Left and right. And a lot of those guys, and even Barb, going to a room full of people, they were putting their lives at risk, because, and I got the opportunity to do that and go out and talk to groups, and nobody asks a better question than a 7th grade boy.
Right. So, very colorful imaginations on those ones over there.
I was doing a panel, and they wanted the microphone, and so I kind of walked over there, and he took it away from me, and it was a parent-teachers group, PTA, and I just put the 4 methods of transmission, sexual methods, and he took the mic, and him and his little group of friends, and they all sat in there, and he goes, "Can you get AIDS from eating your girlfriend out?" As I watched 2 rows of PTA parents go underneath their chair,
gasping.
So, but it was a good question, because my stomach went, and it was the first time I'd spoken in a large group like that. But I was able to go back to the board and explain, and then talk to the parents about using the proper terminology. Don't just give them a book, because if they don't understand something, they're not going to look it up. I grew up with a mother who was a nurse, and you didn't ask a question unless you really wanted to know the answer. And you didn't even hint at a question unless you really wanted to know the answer.
It's amazing.
And she gave the talk to all my friends, so, and they all thought she was disgusting. So,
I love it.
but one of her pictures she used, we found her book, and me and my brother were looking through it, and he goes, "What is that?" And so we kind of took it out and we turned it over. It's leprosy. It has nothing to do with STDs.
She's just lying to
But
everybody. Just like, this is what happens.
that's exactly what
Oh
she
my
had
God,
said.
that's iconic.
This is one of the effects. So if you know anything about leprosy, that's a scary looking
he
picture.
got his leg chopped off by a chainsaw. What does this have anything to do with your STD class?
Yeah, it was. But when I was doing that education outreach, that was very empowering. And it was, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I did colleges, I did massage therapy groups, I did a lot of high schools. And I kept a book, and I kept tracking that book of how many kids I talked to at each group. And they were trying to pass a law at the legislature, and I photographed it and sent it up to the chair of the committee that was on, whatever. And I got a letter back, and he says, "You spoke to this many people over the last 9 years?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "So the law you're trying to pass is it's not the parents that want this. It's Gail Rosika and her group." And they put in a law that made it almost impossible to go in classrooms and stuff and talk. And the whole time I did it, I had one kid that's parent didn't get around to signing his release, and I had one parent pull their child. If nothing else, I had the parents come to listen. So
that's great.
But my favorite line, I always talk about how you can become infected with any STD or anything like that. And so we'd talk about the 3 ways, and we'd talk about being drunk and out of control. And we talked, roofies were really big back then. They probably still are now, but they were just really coming onto the scene. And talked about girls protecting each other. And then the next one, we talked about illegal and prescription drugs and even legal drugs. And then I said, "What's the 3rd way?" And they talked about everything, condoms and whatever. And I'm just like, no. And then, you're in Utah, and I'd say, "I hope it affects all of you at one time." And the room just kind of goes quiet. I says, "The most powerful drug of all, and that's love." If you love me, you'll do it just one time. And I'd always say, "So how many girls have heard that line?" Especially in high school, I get a lot of how many boys have used that line? I had a couple of boys that were brave enough to.
They gave it a whirl, huh?
So, but that was, I had parents always came up to me afterwards and said, "I'm going to remember that one."
That's so good.
So that was fun.
All right, we're running a little short on time, so I do want to get into the Gay Rodeo Association, because I feel like there's a lot of people who are we talk about the Gay Rodeo Association a lot at the Utah Pride Center, where we always like to promote the rodeo and stuff, but I feel like a lot of the reaction I get are people are shocked that gay people are doing rodeo. So
they have been forever
and ever. Yeah. Can you tell us like how the official gay rodeo came to be and how you got involved in gay rodeo?
In Reno, Nevada, the emperor of the court system there wanted to do a fundraiser, and one was for a Thanksgiving Day dinner, and the other one was for multiple sclerosis, I think. And I can't remember which one came first. So he decided that the fundraiser he was going to do was a rodeo. And so they had these couple of rodeos, and they had a pretty good turnout. And when I came to Salt Lake in '82, I met a bunch of the gay rodeo guys here, and they were all going to Reno to the rodeo. And so I thought that was
country boy stuff,
gay
boy stuff, right up your alley. Yeah.
So we headed out there. Well, we get there, and there's no hotel rooms. I mean, the city itself is completely out, and they had already opened up 2 vacant hotels that they had closed down just to put people in. We had 12 people in our room because there was just no place for people to stay.
Oh my God.
So when they came around to do a head check, we were hiding in the showers and under the beds and everything, because we could have 6 people in the room. And so I'm sitting there, and we go to the rodeo, and the stands are just packed. And AIDS hadn't made as big an impact then as it was starting to, but it was just incredible. And Joan Rivers was the Grand Marshal. And,
Joan Rivers.
yeah, and she was handing out hankies to everybody. And
Oh my God,
I
what
don't
an
know how many.
icon.
Most of you know what the hanky code is, don't you?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
No. What color hanky you have is what you're into.
Yeah.
So
Google it if you're underage. Safe search. But,
and it is online. We were just at the Arizona Rodeo, and they had a booth that had the hanky codes and the hankies and everything.
That's so cool.
So she was handing out yellow, brown, and black and red ones. So
She would
that's
be.
the only colors she had.
That's so funny.
But she was great. They had on her a great big blow-up Budweiser horse that she was riding around in kind of a float, and
Incredible.
And it was incredible. And that was the first time I'd ever been anywhere where we were such a majority that when the minority complained about us, the people in the restaurants would ask them to leave.
Yeah.
And so that was really powerful.
Hey, you're actually disturbing the peace this time. Nobody else. Please exit.
So, and then the most powerful thing after that I ever went to was the March on Washington in '93. Yeah. And that's how it kind of compared them too. So that was a life changer. But anyway, that's how it got started. And they only had the one rodeo every year up until 1984. And then other gay rodeo associations started around the country. And some of them had brought their horses out and did a posse. And so they organized the International Gay Rodeo Association after that and started. And it grew quite quickly. And by the time Utah joined, they were called the Golden Spike Gay Rodeo Association, but you couldn't have the same acronym as another organization.
Oh.
So the Golden State, California, already had that, so they just went back to Utah Gay Rodeo Association. So in 1989, they were seeded, and I had just quit working for a medical software company and started working at the post office.
Okay.
And so I came and we went to the finals rodeo in Phoenix, and it was a world that I wanted to be a part of. Yeah. And so I started competing. And for anybody that knows me or knows anything about gay rodeo, I was pretty good. I could do pretty much anything. I wasn't the best at some stuff, and I wasn't going to do rough stuff, bulls and stuff. But so I always had really good partners, and I've been competing in gay rodeo. I took a little bit of a break in the '08s and aughts, and I've competed in and out for 15, 20
What's
years.
your signature event?
Shoot dogging.
What is shoot dogging?
It's an event where you climb down into the bucking chute with the steer. Okay. You get a hold of the steer, they open the gate. You have to get the steer's nose out to the 10-foot line, and then they blow a whistle and you can dog it. And that's just turn it on its side. Turn it on its side.
Oh, okay.
So all four legs are the same way.
That means something in different circles, dogging it. So I just wanted to verify that we were dogging.
You don't get behind it.
Yeah.
But at one point, I had the fastest time of anyone ever on the gay rodeo circuit. And I had a steer in San Diego. And back then, the time, it starts now when the gate opens. Back then, it didn't start until you got to that line. And I had this white steer, and I remember I turned his nose to turn him on his side, and when I went like that, he just laid down. Literally just laid down. So I sat down so it looked like I'd gotten dirty and done something. And I had a point.
Horse was like, I was going to lay down anyway. Trick's on you.
I had a .03 dog time, and no one had that low of one. And I was so excited because I got my steer down the second day, and I was in the running for the belt buckle, and they got ready to announce the belt buckle, and the guy that was doing the ribbons and buckles and stuff, he looks up at me and he says, and the buckle goes to Kevin, and they looked back down, and he looked at me again, and he went back behind, and they're talking, and the guy that had gotten sixth place both days won the buckle, and he wasn't in the top 5, and I missed out on the buckle by .001.
Oh,
and,
wow.
That was pretty hard to take. And I had been second place, I don't know how many times, but I have never won a buckle on the gay rodeo circuit.
No way.
There's people out there who know me, or they're like, you've never won one? And I'm like, nope, never.
Wild.
I've been second so many times and everything, but I do it for the because I enjoy it. It's
Yeah.
an adrenaline rush like no other. So
What can people who are attending the gay rodeo expect? Like what's in it for the guests? What's going on at a gay
well, if
rodeo?
you're a
Because you've got one coming up this summer.
yeah, the end of June,
Okay.
June 20th through the 22nd. The rodeo is the 21st and the 22nd.
Write it down.
So, and there's flyers here if you. I gave out to most everybody. Um, I don't know what the audience expects because a lot of them who come, they know a little bit about rodeo and they're like, gay rodeo. I want to go see what's different here. And gay rodeos are all have to be not 501c3 charities, and so the goal behind Gay Rodeo and the mission statement is to promote the gay and Western country lifestyle and to raise money for your community and donate it back and give people the opportunity, as we call it, to play in the dirt. So we have anyone who wants to compete. It doesn't matter your ability or gender identity or whatever. Some of our rodeos have even had people with disabilities that they've built special equipment for them to be able to do the event.
That's awesome.
And I tell people we can do that because the livestock's all gay, so we have that part covered. So,
it's very inclusive. All the gay ducks will be there, all the gay horses.
But I think when people come, they're just, even if they know it, they're just curious at what it is, and you know, I don't know, I like watching rodeo, so I go. My husband hates barrel racing, and I love barrel racing. So, and he loves mutton busting because the kids fall off and get their dirt filled with their mouth.
You're throwing so many words at me that what is mutton busting?
It's where you put little kids on a sheep and let them go.
That does sound like a sick prank to pull on kids. It's like, all right, bye.
It's a crowd pleaser, and you'd be surprised at how many kids want to do it.
Oh yeah, I'll bet.
It's a lot of fun. We had one little boy, and this is my favorite story, and I'd heard his parents talking him into do it. So he did it, and I'm handing a ribbon to each one of the kids that did it, and I asked him, "You want to do it again?" And I had this little gal, and she was quite tall, and I asked her, and I turned and looked down, and this little kid looked right at me. He goes, "No, never, ever, ever."
That would have been me.
So we got over by the chutes, and he looked at his folks, and they're both country people. They grew up on farms and stuff, so they wanted him to do this. And he looked at me and he says, "I've done it, and I'm never doing it again." And his dad goes, "But was it fun?" He goes, "I've done it, and I'm never doing it."
Yeah, that's an indoor boy.
He was about 6 years old, so
yeah, iconic.
He was one of my favorites. And then we have goat dressing, which is an event where you have two people and a pair of tidy whities that you run down to a goat tethered 50 feet away and put the underwear on them and run back. And all the rodeos now are letting the audience come down and try to
underwear the goats.
And with our rodeo, I don't know what the other rodeos, they give out buckles, but we give the top team that are doing the community goat dressing, we call it, we give them the exact same buckle that we give the champions in bull riding or calf roping or anything. So they get the same buckle. So
that's awesome.
It's kind of fun. Last year we had 2 girls visiting from back east, and I'd heard the one girl say she always wanted to win a rodeo buckle, and they were kind of country girls, and they won it, and they were just
oh my god, that's
ecstatic.
So cute.
So that was,
you could be the next gay rodeo superstar. So if people are interested in finding more about the Utah Gay Rodeo Association, where's the best place to find y'all?
The website has a lot of information on it. Facebook, we have that, but the website's getting to where we finally got it built back up to where you can pretty much find out if you want to be a sponsor and do advertising, or you want to sponsor a buckle. Our buckles for each event are $300, and then we have ribbon sponsors, which are $50 for the event. So
that's not so bad.
No, that's one way you can get involved. And
that's great.
So we do that.
Seems like a good way for like a small business or an organization or something to
and our ad pages aren't that much. And then we have vendor booths, and they're $100 for 2 days. So
great. Oh, that's nothing.
So we're trying to build it up. This year we're putting a huge emphasis on being able to bring country western dance back. So we'll have music for people to dance to during the day, all 3 days. And then Sunday night, we're going to the Outlaw Saloon for our award ceremony.
Yes.
And they've got a great dance floor. And we have the fabulous Saliva Sisters performing that night. So
I love the Saliva Sisters.
Well, they make up songs just for us.
I would expect nothing less from them. They're so wonderful.
You know the song Rawhide?
I don't think so.
Rawhide.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Well, theirs is In My Bra. Pull them up, strap them down. It's a great song when they do it.
I love it.
And then when they have a gay audience, if you've seen them, they can be very colorful.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
But they last year, I've worked with them a lot, and so we have a good relationship. And they called me up and wanted to know, we have a guy named John Beck who's the oldest competitor on the circuit. He's in his 70s.
Wow.
And he still does a lot of the rough stock event.
Get it.
And they wanted to do a song about him, I thought. So I gave them a lot of information, and they were asking some questions. And unfortunately, they had talked to other people, and the song was about me, not John Beck. So I was kind of caught off guard.
That's so funny.
But anyway, so they do a lot of, they've been really good with us, and they actually give us a break on things and help us out. And so one year we had a rodeo, and they performed, and then the girls all donated their salary, I guess.
Yeah,
they're paying it back to us.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so they've been really good to us. So we'll have them there.
And this is 30 years of the Gay Rodeo this year.
50 years.
50 years of the Gay Rodeo. Oh my gosh.
So in the finals is in Reno, and they've got a huge dance competition going on. They reserved 1,600 room nights, and they're almost gone.
Wow.
They originally reserved, I think, 800 and something, and they doubled it again, and they're still running out of room nights. So if you want to go to Reno at the end of October, it's going to be a lot of.
I never thought I would want to go to Reno at the end of October, but this does sound really fun.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. So
but definitely check out the Utah Gay Rodeo Association. Check the Utah Gay Rodeo at the end of June. You said the 20th through the 22nd.
Yeah,
that's so awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Kevin. This was such a very enlightening, fun thing to get to talk to and connect with you. One last thing before we officially close it up for anything. Is there something that you'd like to pass on to the next generation who's coming up? Because, I mean, eventually we're going to be handing the reins of the community over to them. And what do you want them to know?
Don't make the mistakes we made. Please take the time, if you're going to be in an organization or something, and go out and talk to the elders and find out what's going on. Because we don't need to repeat over and over the same mistakes and the same things. And you see that quite often. And just go out and find out some history, so that you know what's needed and what's you can do to build upon what's already built there. I always say I get recognized for a lot of stuff, and it's because I have a big mouth. But I don't do any of this on my own.
Sure.
There are people behind me who make me look good, and they deserve all the credit. And I'm thankful for them. And I kind of just want to publicly thank those people. If you think you can't contribute, or you're afraid to be in a leadership position, believe me, the people who are in those leadership positions want you to use your talents, because it's so much greater when you can just say to somebody, do this the way you want to do it. Do this, here's the guidelines. And because if you're a leader, the success you have is because of the people who are willing to help you and willing to do the work. Because I don't really do that much work. I do, but and I have. But I don't do anywhere near what the 30, 40, 50 people in different organizations and stuff.
Right.
I mean, I've served on the International Unions Board for both the Postal Service and the AFL-CIO. I've served on a couple of other boards. I was actually asked to be on the original board of Equality Utah.
Oh, wow.
And I went to 2 meetings and realized okay, I have Gay Rodeo, I'm involved with the court, I'm doing
Too
stuff for
busy,
the
yeah.
AIDS Foundation. I don't have the time
Yeah.
that they need for me, and so I bowed out of that. But just the little things that you can do to help, uh, you don't know how much they mean, and especially if you're in a leadership position or in an organizing position. Those are the people who come in and say, I want to help you and I want to do something.
Yeah.
And I don't care who you are, if you're in a leadership position, you find something for them to do.
Yep.
You
got a set of hands. They give them something to do.
Yeah, because they're the ones that are going to make you look good.
Yeah, no doubt.
So,
Well, and if you don't feel like I love what Kevin said about having people around him that nothing would be possible without him. Because I think that all of us have those people, whether we're always aware of them or not. We have people around us that can get us through the really tough stuff, and that we can look to. And I think we should all try harder to be those people, be the people who show up. If somebody's doing, God forbid, an open mic night or something, and they want you there, be the person who shows up for that, because you might be the only one. And it changes everything to feel those people around you and to have that kind of support. I think that is such a great lesson for everyone to go on.
And this is the last ribbon I won rodeoing. I got 5th place in shoot dogging at the Bighorn Rodeo in Las Vegas, and that was, what was it, Ryan? 3 years ago.
3 years.
And at that point, I was the oldest competitor there, so I went to get my ribbon. All my friends and the groups that I work with are applauding, and they're yelling, "One for the geriatric." And since then, though, I've had some health issues, so that event's out for me. About the only one I could really do is a mounted horse event or calf roping on foot, because I can't run to do goats and wild drag and those kind of things.
Yeah,
so.
that's cool.
Anyway.
Thanks again for being here, Kevin. We really appreciate it. Keep an eye, utahpridecenter.org. On our calendar, we always have our upcoming firesides. We will be taking a break from firesides in June. I wonder why. What's going on in June? It's the Utah Pride Festival, utahpride.org. We are so excited. We've got a 2-day festival. We've got incredible talent, including Cupcake and David Archuleta. We have our March and Rally, the Interfaith Service. We've got a youth dance coming up this year. We have so many awesome things coming up for Pride, so please take a look at all that, utahpride.org. utahpridecenter.org is where to check out all of the center's programs and events. Just like the Fireside here, we do all sorts of awesome stuff, game nights, Dungeons and Dragons, fireside chats, just like this one. Always keep an eye on the calendar. You never know what's going to come up next. And thank you for watching, and thank you all for being here in person. This is amazing. Have a lovely night. Goodbye. Thanks, Evan. That was great.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to help Jay turn that off because I'm not sure if we were turned off. We did have to cut early, but usually we have a Q&A section, so question.